Okay.
You knew that. You just did that on purpose. I know. I saw you dancing in the background, okay? I can
Yes,
see
I
you.
always
Right?
dance to this.
Yeah. Now I know part of the reason why we've been having a certain kind of conversation. Hello,
Why we've been
Pasir
having
Ris.
what?
Certain conversations in our private group chat, but we'll talk about that later. Hi, Pasir Ris. Good evening.
Hello, Kemengan.
Oh, very good. And for our viewers who have no idea what we just said, Pasir Ris and Kembangan are two places in Singapore. And these are the places that Ashok and I are based. So go Google and find out which part of Singapore that we are in. And it's all Singapore today. There's no Malaysia involved. Yes. Okay, we got rid of Malaysia, and it's Ashok and me looking at how we can find patterns in all the conversations that we've had in the month of October around talent development, right? So, of course, I'm taking a lot of the glory, given, especially when which is very shameful, given that I was not here half of the month, whatever. I learned from the Sifu, who happens to be in Malaysia. That one in Malaysia, sitting in Malaysia.
Just for the record, I did not celebrate that Sifu is not here. Just for the record.
Just for the record. Okay.
And number two. And number two, to all our guests who have logged in and listening to us, happy Diwali or Deepavali. I know we just passed, but it's still the week of celebration, the Festival of Lights. So have a great one.
Yes, have a great one. It's a celebration for, I hear from some, I have not, it's not over yet. Probably go on for a week or something like that. So Diwali, Valstikal, everyone. For those of you Hindus who are celebrating Diwali or Deepavali. Okay.
And
so
we got Sandeep around. Hello, Sandeep.
Yes.
Nice to have you
Hi,
around.
Sandeep.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. First on the show. And if you happen to celebrate Diwali as well, happy Diwali to you. Okay, so as usual, it's the end of the month. And as usual, what we do is in the last week or the last show for the month, we recap the shows that went on before. And we also look at, seeing if there are patterns, what are things that we spot and what are things that perhaps that were in common or that were contradicting amongst the three people that we had this month, right? And then maybe put that together at the end with a recap of the recap and close the session. Sure. All right, before we go. Ashok, you had the opportunity to talk to Masi, one of my favorite people, Marshall Vianata of Citibank. Tell us what was some things that you took away from that. What was the insights?
Okay, so first of all, for everyone who's now listening in again, for the month of October, we focused on talent development, right? So just to give a bit of context, 2 months ago, we started with talent acquisition, then we talked about talent retention. So October was fully focused on tapping the ideas of talent development. Yes, and Mashi came about and, whoa, was it powerful, right? She's quiet, but she's one of those quiet person, but who thinks deeply. And one of the things that she kept talking about was the need for collaborative relationships. And that is good. She kept banging on that, the importance of having relationships within the organization, even in the business world, and it has to be collaborative. And some of the ideas that she shared with us was, number one, she reinforced the fact that relationships contribute to business results. Okay, that's number one. Number two, she said we need to be very proactive in our approach to development of people. And she went on to tell us that we need to know people at a deeper level. That means you need to have those purposeful conversations. Why? Because we need to help people be aware of their blind spots. You need to help people reflect. So she's a big person about asking deeper questions to help people self-reflect on what is important for them. And she said this will also help in building collaborative relationships. So Marcy, right? She practices yoga and all that, and she 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 keeps very high standards for herself. And it came out, she was telling us, she really puts very high standards. At the same time, she pushes herself to learn. And I think that is what she brings across to the people that she has conversations with. And she knows that people development is not just a responsibility of the L&D department, but individual line managers too. Right? And that's why she focuses a lot on helping them self-reflect on how they can be more powerful, how they can be more purposeful in their conversation and develop performance in that way. So that was my biggest takeaway: collaborative relationships to drive business results.
And I'm glad that came out, because that is Marcy. I've known Marcy for wow, I think 5 going on 6 years, and I've worked with her in the capacity of being someone who supports her from the outside in. And you're right, it's spot on. It is all about collaboration, and so she's amazing. She's this bridge, right? That that looks at collaborating internally, then taking the essence of what she gets from the internal stakeholder, and then collaborating with the external party and saying, okay, now how do we bring that in? How do we bridge it? How do we marry it such that we are getting the best? We're getting the best from the external person that she's partnering with, or partners, and saying, okay, now I need to help. I need you guys, because I know you guys are good in this, to help me bridge the gaps here with my internal people.
Right.
And spot on. She spends a lot of time in those conversations on both sides, right? In both sides, and both Mother and I have told her, and we continue to tell her, and we'll tell to everybody in the world as we're doing it right now, because I'm going to do it right now. We love working with her, because we really know, we have clarity of what she wants to achieve, because she has determined that. She has determined that for herself. She's determined that in collaboration with her client, her internal client, and then she brings that to the partner, external partner, and makes that clear. So it's challenging work. It's growth work, right? Yet at the same time, you know that it's a partnership in all the sense and the essence of that word. When you're going in, you know she has your back, and you therefore, make sure that you have her back as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lady. She's a lady who walks the talk.
Speaking of which, I must say, initially, it seems like she was on dicey grounds. What I mean by, let me give you my context from my view, right? Because she talked about business results, and she kept emphasizing we need to help people understand their blind spots. So I was like wondering, how are you going to do that? And isn't it kind of sensitive within the business world and all of that? And what I walked away with was understanding her belief that wisdom lies within everyone. And she, as a coach, is there to ask them the right questions, because the solutions will come out, and she just guides them. So initially I was like, oh, is this a bit of dicey ground? But then I could see that what you just mentioned, the clarity in her thinking and the way she approaches. And even that conversation, if you think about it, it is about building relationships, isn't it? Collaborative relationships. We all have blind spots, but it is how we help each other grow,
become clear about grow and clear about what we want.
And as we grow in organizations, it helps us improve our performance, and therefore also contribute to the results. So I can see the power in that.
Yeah, it's also the blinds, uncovering blind spots, as we both know, right? It allows the person to go beyond a certain. It's stretching you. It's in a way forcing you to see what are the things that I need to build that I don't have right now. So it's not just collaboration from a very feel-good kind of a space, but
Yes,
it's
yes.
collaboration in growth, not just taking and strengthening the muscle that you have, but it's also stretching the muscle and maybe even building new muscle, because we may not know that the role that we are in at that point in time, or the role that's planned for us as a talent, if you're a talent and it's been projected for us, needs us to have certain kinds of skills which we're not aware. We don't know that we don't have it. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting angle that she comes from. Right? Asking the leaders what are some blind spots. So focusing the conversation around blind spots, not just from the team's perspective or the learner's perspective, but from the
That's right.
team leader's perspective as well,
That's right.
as to what are you missing? Are you missing something? Are we missing? Not that she has the answer, but just going through that process together, learning and development, L&D, all right, and the business, going through that process and uncovering what are those things that we may be that's not so obvious that we may be missing. I think that's it's not an easy process. It's not a
Yes.
short process, but I think when you do it well, or you keep with it, the results demonstrate. So,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, so that was Maharshi, all about her end in mind is about collaborative relationships, and the way to do it is being proactive in going deeper to understand the person, help them understand their blind spots, and then help them reflect so they can develop and grow. Right. So that was
Very good.
Marcy. I had a
Yeah,
fantastic time with her.
very good, very good, very good. So we then
And
had a
you
chat
did
with,
come, right, with Dr. Kam.
yes. So
Now
we
I
had a
wasn't
chat with
there.
Dr. No, you weren't.
So this is learning moment for me. I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, you weren't there, but you heard the show. Dr. Kam. So we moved from Marcy, who's L&D,
Yep.
which is where many people think, development, right? When you're talking about development and growth, it's HR or L&D that's involved, and if an organization has an OD space role, then OD is involved in it, right? We shifted gears a little bit with Dr. Kam because Dr. Kam is a team leader. And he's a team leader, right? He leads a team, a business function within a pharmaceutical organization. And where we took the conversation was how does the other way around, not L&D collaborating with the business, but how does the business collaborate with HR to get the best out of his team, right? So it's the function deliberately saying, I am going to collaborate with HR, right? Deliberately saying, I'm going to play a role, a deliberate role in making sure that I am part of the team's development. And his mantra is, if I don't know my team, then who else knows my team?
Okay, if I don't know my team, okay, fair enough. I think it's a good question. If I don't know my team, okay.
And I think if I were to put it in a nutshell, you know how all the books, all these management books and these gurus will talk about how a team leader or a leader is someone who builds relationships and get results through relationships, right? I mean, I'm codifying it that way, right?
Sure.
A leader is the person who keeps the team together, is the one that anchors the team, and it's all about making the team work better, right? As an individual and as a team, right? And how this is where our vision is. This is, as a leader, this is where you should be heading, kind of a thing, right? This is kind of your goal, right? And yet we've also had many conversations with leaders who find that's the work you and I and Malheur do, right? We will have work with the leaders to help them feel more comfortable with it, build skill around being able to do that, right? Dr. Kam is a model in action. Okay. Dr. Kam walks the talk of a leader that focuses on relationships, who focuses on knowing exactly each person in the team, what makes them tick, both at the professional as well as a personal level. He looks at the two separately and he strategizes about the two separately. So if he wants to know you, Ashok, and you're part of his team, and he wants to know about you professionally, then the conversation, for example, happens in a professional setting.
Right.
Right? But he knows that all of us are a composite of both things that happen at work and outside, right? So
Yep.
he wants to know about the non-professional stuff, then that conversation will happen outside, in an outside setting, nothing to do with work. So over coffee, for example, or over
Right.
dinner or a lunch or a meal or something like that, where he steers the conversation into, a place that both are comfortable sharing and talking about it. Because he said, whatever happens, we need to work with the individual as a whole individual. The person doesn't just exist in this vacuum of professionals, right?
Right.
He or she is a whole person. So it'll be helpful to know them on both levels, right? So that was one of the things he talked about. He talked about how his success is determined by the success of the team.
Okay.
And we're not talking about ticking the boxes on KPIs. He's talking about if my individual team members are successful, they get promoted, they go into another roles, they achieve what they want. That's my success, because I know that what I have been doing has been the right thing, and it's been right for them to get what they want.
Wow.
Right? So he says he knows everyone in his team to that level of details and the granular level. So he
Wow.
does spend a lot of time doing that, right? He says, it's just me. That's how I need to be. I need to be involved in the process. So I will go to HR if something's not working. I'll go to HR and say, how can we make it work? Whether it's systems, whether it's processes, it's SOPs, right? How can we make it work in this instance? Because I have a good feeling for it. And the proof is in the pudding, because his numbers prove that his strategy seems to be working, right? So his strategy is not to look at the numbers and push the numbers, but look at the people and know what makes them tick, what makes them work optimally, and the numbers will follow. So that's Dr. Kam.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
30 minutes.
Wow. The way you explain it, I'm already wowed by your experience, listening to him. So what I'm hearing is, again, yes, the results are the results. Is a process. The process is really focusing about the people. As a leader, right, I have the courage to hold the conversations with L&D HR, because I know my people better. As a leader, I know my people better, not only at the professional level, but at a personal level. And there's a dichotomy in there where I hold this conversation in different environments and space, but I know the whole person, right? And with that, then I know how to grow them. And my success is when they grow to hit different positions, promotions, lateral promotions, whatever it is, right? So his success is based on how his people grow. And he knows that when he helps them grow, the business results will be there. It's because of the business results, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. I'm still wowed. What a blueprint, right? Like I understand what you mean by saying he's a model. Right?
Yeah, you hear. For me, it's been like, you hear all this, okay, this is what we aspire to be, this is what a leader aspires to be, or this is what we think a good leader is, right? And I'm sure many of us, and many of you out there have said, okay, some of you may have found that leader, and then some of us are going, where is this person that they seem to be talking about, this book that you talk about it really seriously, really exists? Where? Right? Dr. Kam.
And you're right to say I wasn't in the show, but thank God you have that recording on LinkedIn and Facebook and all that. So it gave me the ability to log in. So anyone who's listening in, all our shows in the past shows are all available. You can go and listen to all of them. And one thing I heard from Dr. Kam was he was courageous to say the difficult parts of being a leader. He said,
Mm,
I remember one thing he mentioned was the toughest part of being a leader is applying empathy
mm,
to help
mm.
the staff realize what they really want. So it's helping the staff. At the same time, how do you now apply the empathy? That means it's about knowing. I gather it as knowing yourself and helping the other person. You
Yeah,
know, and, and,
yeah.
and that is a tough part for leaders, isn't it?
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
it is.
and I
Yeah.
guess it stems from the commitment to want to be such a leader.
Mm.
Sorry, I interrupted
Or
you.
no. Or you're right. Or knowing that perhaps I need a different way. I need to think about being with the team and supporting the team in a different way than what's been practiced out there.
Wow, that means it's reframing my current practices, my mindsets to see things different. But it comes from the intention of wanting to serve and help the other.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, right.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, and it was really quite a good. It was like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, all these nuggets, right? And it was in 30 minutes because we had a little bit of a tech issue and he was only able to join us in 30 minutes, right? Yet it was really, really a good 30 minutes show.
You know what we can do? We can write to him and say, Dr. Kam, you owe us another 30 minutes, come in November.
Yeah. Part two.
Part two.
Yeah.
Yeah, sequel, right?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sandeep has put up a note there. Here he
Mm.
says, in his opinion, yes, it's tough to understand employees' emotions too in different situations. I
Situations. Yeah.
totally agreed, Sandeep. Totally agreed. And I know Muller is also on the show, which I think she will echo what I'm going to say and what Sham also agrees. Yes, it is tough, but I believe as leaders, we need to take those steps to really understand. Right? It comes with having the skills of asking the right questions, listening, and then guiding them. But yes, it's tough, but it is very important. Right? Thanks a lot for that, Sandeep. So that was Dr. Kam.
Yes. And we finished off our guest. The last guest we had was YAT Seng, which you and who you and Muller had the privilege to interview. Right, and I have to leave you on this one really because I have not yet seen the show, so you need to wow me with the show. Okay, the summary.
Oh,
Yeah, I know,
terrible.
very bad.
Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. So,
Uh-huh.
Yat Seng, we had 60 minutes with him, maybe more, 62 perhaps. But it was not enough. I could just go on and listening. Right now,
Mm,
okay, he's with Sintoma Malaysia, right?
mm,
Now, what I liked about his focus, right? His whole organization, and he's such a practitioner in this values. And the
mm.
interesting part is we got him on Values Day last Thursday. But yeah,
Oh,
it's a nice
okay.
coincidence. It was a very
Yeah.
nice coincidence. So his focus was all about the values. Now, I'm not referring to only personal values, though there was a
Mm,
discussion about that. It's about
mm,
corporate values.
mm,
How everyone walks the talk is because they put values up front, right? Values up
mm,
front,
mm.
and everybody's aligned to the values. Now, how do they do that? Now, he even gave us an example of how values influence from recruitment to development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are even a playbooks given to the line managers and the type of questions they can ask, how
Mm-hmm.
what they are looking for when it comes to values, right?
Okay.
So values guide everything, right down from recruitment to development in this sense. And
Mm,
they also look at two things, right? The quantitative is measured by metrics, as we know.
mm-hmm.
A lot of his focus was on the how, the behaviors.
Okay.
What are the
Mm,
behaviors driven by the values? So yes, the organization has those five values, from
mm,
safety to innovation to integrity, from what I remember.
mm,
But they also focus on identifying the behaviors, right?
Mm.
What are the behaviors that drive those values? And that is why the leaders are also supported, because the leaders are held accountable for these values on a
Mm.
day-to-day basis and how it shows up in the organization. And they're also supported by a learning and development playbook, you know. So yeah, they do have that. So it is not just these are the values, it's in the walls, go follow. No, it's
Mm.
a
Mm.
continuous conversations. Now, he even spoke about continuous conversation because the leaders are skilled to hold continuous developmental conversations
Oh, wow.
with the people.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Mm.
Because they know that, okay, these are the values, these are the behavior sets that you need to focus on, right?
Mm.
And so, therefore, how do you now identify those competencies and how do you now help people develop to those levels? So the leaders are encouraged to continuously hold those developmental conversations, not just during a performance appraisal period and all that, also at ad hoc times in that sense, you know. So it's continuous development. So they're guided
Mm.
along that way. And something he brought up was communication is key. It's very
Mm.
transparent, right? Because he said communication is very, very important in the organization, because whether it's at town hall, your one-to-one meetings, you know, group meetings, whatever it is, communication transparency is extremely important because it's easier for people to make decisions,
Mm.
right? It's
Yep.
easier
Yep.
for people to make decisions. And he also spoke about how values contribute to the culture, right?
Mm.
And some examples
Mm.
he gave us, yes, they have an open door policy, right? And anyone who calls him Mr. Yat Seng, he does not allow that. He said, no, there's no Mister here. I know it's an Asian
Mm.
thing, it's to respect, but he breaks that down and said, no, no, just call me Yat Seng. So he
Mm.
allows that that level of conversation where there are no titles, you know, the
Mm.
use of personal names, open door policies, and they focus a lot on holding continuous conversation, communication in that sense, to ensure there's transparency, right? So they're all driven by values, right? And and I was sharing with him when I was googling about his company and all that. I came
Mm.
across a particular site, and someone had actually commented that symptoma is safety. So it's like synonymous, you know, because they
Okay.
walk the talk, because the leaders walk
Mm.
the talk, right?
Mm.
And you normally hear about values in organization, and only maybe a certain group of people are trying to push that. But here is cascaded down throughout the whole organization, that every leader is held accountable. They are
Mm.
empowered on how to drive the behaviors. So any organization, anyone, HR, L&D, or leaders listening in to us, right? You've already got the values with you. You've
Mm.
already identified what are the values that you need. So now just go
Mm.
deeper to identify the behaviors and ensure those behaviors come out on a day-to-day basis, on an operational basis, and provide the leaders with those tools to be able to hold those developmental conversation or the guidance on how to develop people with those behaviors, you know.
Mm.
So I think
Mm.
it's a fantastic thing. We've heard a lot about the importance of values in the past. I've heard of people saying, it's just part of the wall, but
Mm.
it was so refreshing to hear someone who says they take it so seriously that it drives their behaviors, you know,
Mm.
every aspect
Mm.
of the organization. Yeah.
I that idea. So two things jump out
Mhm.
to me as I hear you speak or as you spoke. One was that building the skill in developmental conversations
Yes.
for leaders to have that. And I think that is and I'm sure you will agree with me, from the conversations that we have with HR, with even function leaders in the work that we do. One of the things that is people like to avoid is conversations around development, right? Anything to do with, like, conversations that are related to coaching or to mentoring and things like that, because
Mhm.
sometimes you can go into spaces that you may be not comfortable with, or you don't
Yeah.
know how to have the conversation. Yeah. um, and it's actually a critical core skill that leaders need to have. And many of us are not trained in how to do that, how to have those conversations, leaders, to have those
Okay.
conversations, let alone the developmental conversations. It's like, okay, why don't you go fill the document and I'll fill my document and we'll come and see where we meet. And then, it's almost like a negotiation as to, so which track do you want to go, or which program do you want to go, and you kind of tick the boxes and you go off because you're just going to finish it off very, very quickly, right? So the conversation is more than that, right? That's one. This is also a conversation that's driven by the mission, vision, values that the organization holds, and obviously it's held very strongly in Sintoma, right?
That's right.
It reminds me of the golden circle that Simon Sinek talks about, where at the core of it, it's the why, right? And you talked about how the why then drives how are we going to do it, how are we going to what are the behaviors that demonstrates it, right? Sinek's circle had the what at the outside, right? The larger outer circle is the what that we do, right? And now obviously that what is in what it could be in the products that they do. The what could be that, or the what could be that safe that person wrote. Sintoma is synonymous with safety, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
It could be that, yeah. So kind of like as you're talking, that circle came to my brain.
Right. And yes, Sandeep, thank you very much for reminding me of some of the other values, which is teamwork, innovation, integrity. Yes, and when he spoke about innovation, I like this aspect also. I mean, normally when we think about innovation, we think about eureka ideas and what have we got. Well, no. Yes, he said no. Innovation also means continuous improvement, small improvements at the back end also. Doesn't matter. So innovation is not put in a high pedestal of the eureka Einstein moments, but is also, and give an example about being at the small improvements from the back rooms, process improvement. That's also considered innovation for them, and it's all driven by the values. So they brought it down so that everyone can have an ownership of those values and contribute to those values. So
Nice.
it was very nice to hear from him, and whoever had listened into that cast last week, you should go and listen to him again. There are a lot of ideas in there that you can even replicate within your organizations, right? To use values to drive your behaviors, and as we all know, with the right behaviors, performance, and get the results.
Yeah.
Now, interesting when I know those are three speakers that we heard, right? Leaders, right? Now, what was interesting is when you were speaking, Sham, right? I'm getting some common factors, emerging factors that is coming out for the month of October from a development point of view, right?
Tell me, what are you seeing?
Okay, what I'm hearing, right? Number one is about putting people at the center of development, right? We heard it from us. We heard it from Dr. Kam also, but knowing your people, right? Number two, leaders are also responsible for development.
Okay.
So it's not just a responsibility of L&D or HR or whoever you got, but the leaders, because you know your own people, right? You're also responsible for the development. And I think now that I'm talking about it, I recall Dr. Kam saying even leaders also need to have coaches to develop themselves and all that. So it's about self and team.
Yep.
The third thing I'm hearing emerging is values drive behaviors. Right? Whether Marcy talked about helping people understand, their own oneself. Those are the values, personal values that drives your behaviors as leaders, or in the sense of Sintoma, right, where the organizational values drive behaviors. And the fourth one, I think, what you have also alluded to and banged on is the fact that we need to design deliberate developmental conversations.
Okay.
You need to have those conversations, and we need to have it in a very deliberate fashion. So this is what I'm what I'm hearing, in October that's emerged. Put people at the center of self-development. Leaders are responsible for self-development, values drive behaviors, and have those deliberate conversations.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah,
I've put
that's
that all on the comment so that we capture it and it's out there, right?
yeah.
Good. So I
What
think
about
that
yourself? What jumped out for you, if any at all?
for me, it's I think it's 2 and 4. That the leaders are part of the
Okay.
development, and
Yes.
it's oh my God, it's spoken for so long. People have been talking about this, right? And leaders need to be part of conversation, and it's almost kind of like this is HR's job, this is L&D's job, right? I think what's strong in this month's 3 guests is that all 3 of them talked about the leaders needing to have the conversation
Yes.
and or being able to have that conversation. It's not necessarily that they have that conversation themselves or by themselves. It's in collaboration with HR. It could be in collaboration with L&D, or it could be guided by L&D and then then taken by them to their teams, right?
Yep.
So it is a partnership.
Yep.
And I think it's twofold. It's both HR and or L&D making that leap, making that jump, and saying, I'm going to find a way to make the functions be part of this process.
Yep.
Yeah, and the leaders saying, yeah, I know it's HR's job. I know HR or stroke L&D is the one responsible for it. But heck, these are my people and I want to have a hand in it.
Yep.
Right? Yes, it might mean a bit more work initially, but in the medium to long term, I think it's going to be more efficient as a process in terms of development. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And if you think about why leaders are hesitant to do that, I think we go back to the leadership pipeline and what Ram Charan does design, right? And if you look at the derailers at all levels, or many of the levels that you look at, like when you're a manager of people or a manager of managers, right? One of the consistent or common derailers is the fact that we hold on to our technical skills. We're still seeing ourselves as technical experts. We are still seeing ourselves as subject matter experts, or having the subject. We are defining ourselves, even if we are, manager of this people and we've got a title, we are still defining ourselves as that in that terms of the technical skills, right?
Yes.
And as long as we do that shift to see how I can partner with HR, or I can partner with learning and development, or I can partner with OD, will not be in that realm, in that space.
Sure. No,
So
definitely.
Me, it's those 2. And the second one would be then designing deliberate conversations.
Yeah.
But that would be effect of this happening only when the first thing happens, that collaboration, and that this is part of my role, then the second thing can happen. The second thing can't happen before the first. So,
you know what? On behalf of everyone listening in and watching us in the future, I am so happy that you and Malhar curated these powerful leaders, because it's a home run. It's a home run. We. I'm French, no? Curated curated these powerful speakers, because it is a home run. It is now demonstrating that this is just not talk. They are leaders who actually show up, who empathize with the people, know the people, and develop them so that they can be better themselves than who they are, right? And get those results. So fantastic curation of leaders, speakers who have shared for the month of October. Now, before we go on to, thank you. Before we go on to your other favorite aspect, let's see what Sandeep has to say. He says, how can, and he's asking this question for Sham, how can L&D help employees identify their core values? Question mark. And then by performing values assessment tests or asking them to get coaches guiding them in finding new ones. Okay, before you jump in, Sham, let me just share what YAT Seng had shared last week, right? So one of the things that YAT Seng said that this was a spin-off question because of what Muller had asked. He said he had actually held some workshops for some of his people to help them identify their own personal values. Right? So that they could identify. So he held his own workshop for his own employees, staff, to help them identify, crystallize those values. And so therefore they could see how it is in sync with the organizational ones. So then they can go on to make those right decisions. Right? I know YAT Seng did not share within this 1 hour space, but I believe if there was a need to, they will get developmental coaches to guide them. If there's some areas, So I didn't have an idea from YAT Seng whether they use any assessment tests. But what about your experience, Sham? Have you come across anyone using assessment tests?
Yep. So before I go into the assessment tools and things like that, right? I think Sandeep put there's a very interesting spin in his question, not spin, but an angle that he's taken. He talked about, can we identify? Identification is one. Number two is finding new ones, right? And that's interesting because many people tend to think values are cast in stone. This my values at the age of 20s, I just started working, it's going to be there and the same. As I move into my 30s, I get married, I have a family, and my values are going to be the same, right? It's going to drive me, or it's going to anchor me. So we all know that values change, right? And from our speak, we talk about purpose. Our purpose changes, and and purpose is the subset of value. Values are a subset of purpose and things like that, right? And it changes in circumstances. So that's a great thing that you brought up, Sandeep. It does change, and sometimes we may not realize it. We may not also be able to identify it. We may not be able to say it's that. That's what my purpose is. That's what's driving it, right? Are there tools to identify it? Yes, there are tools to identify it. Muller, me, and we are still trying to convince Mr. Go Ashok Menon that he's on the right path. We work with an assessment tool called the Flow Profiler, and the Flow Profiler starts those conversations. It's not a tool to help per se identify values, but it is definitely a tool that looks at what are things that make me who I am, make me work in a certain way when it's a normal situation, makes me work in a certain way when I'm under stress. And there's a correlation between, certain things that I do in those situations. Now, that's part of the journey of asking, going deeper into the question of values, purpose, and things like that, right? Does it require a coach? Maybe. There are different interventions. So different organizations have different ways of thinking about how to help people identify or find, right, purpose or values. Some organizations go down the awareness level. You might have coaches to help you do that. You might have training programs or interventions to help you do that, or modes of getting you to build your knowledge around these concepts of values. Yeah.
Okay.
So, in summary, are there tools out there to help you assess and find out what it is that makes you tick in terms of what drives your behaviors in a workspace? Yes. Do values change? Definitely, right? Do you need to identify them at different spaces in time? Maybe, yes. Some people need that help. Is coaching one of those interventions? Yes, it is, but it's not the only one.
Yeah. No, thank you again, Sandeep, for bringing up this question because
Yeah.
as Shyam was talking about I just reflected on a personal experience I had with Sifu Muller, right? When
Mm,
we did
mm.
she got me to do the flow profiler
Well,
assessment and all. And to be fair, right? Yes, you're right to say it is not about helping me crystallize my values, but the conversations, because Muller is very experienced in this area, the conversations that we had, right, raised some of those values up and helped me
mm,
understand, right, what my choices have been in the past, and has these choices been helping me, and so
mm,
therefore how can I make the right choices to drive my performance, right?
mm,
So yes, the assessment tool in this sense, flow profiler, is not meant for values per se, but it helps unearth them also,
mm,
right? And
mm.
help me be very clear about the choices I can make to drive my performance, right? So thank you, Sifu, if you're listening in one day, right? And thanks
And
again, Sandeep.
yes, that was a very insightful question. I think the question has many layers,
Layers,
and
that's right.
yeah, and thank you for going and for thinking about it in the way that you're thinking about it. I
Yeah.
think we've got 13 minutes. It'll be
Okay.
a good
Okay.
time for us to kind of consolidate our discussion this evening
Okay.
with a
Okay.
couple more with a with 3 slides, I think, and I
Okay.
think that
Okay.
will bring us to the end of it. Let me just bring that up and let us share it. You see the slides that I
Mm,
pulled
mm.
together is familiar to our viewers,
Viewers.
because this is they're part of the starting video that we have with each show. And I told Ashok I wanted to just start off with this slide by this quote by Pearl Chu, sorry. Develop talent for tomorrow rather than just hire for yesterday. My takeaway from this is that I still keep hearing managers and organizations saying things along the lines of, um, why do we need to develop people? They're going to leave us anyway, and one day they're going to leave us. Yeah.
Wow.
And it blows my mind that something like this still is a concern, a worry for managers. In today's
Mhm.
day and age, it's like it's at the tip of my tongue. Ashok, sometimes to say, parents, if your parents said that about you, and so why should I grow my child? How should I develop my child? They'll leave me one day and go. Where
Sure.
will be there,
Right.
right? I
Right.
mean, it's yes, they will leave you and go. Sometimes I think you need to think about it in terms of, it's good that they're leaving you and going because they're growing, and that's part of the process. I mean,
Sure.
right? And you could turn around and look at yourself, and how many times have you grown and then left, right? It has benefited you. So, yeah, so it's like, I had to get it up, pet peeve.
Sure, sure. You know what? Something that you mentioned in the beginning, you said people are still talking this way. Now, I've been driving this point. I said we need to move away from our pre-COVID mindset and narratives, and we need to
Mm,
start focusing on post-COVID
mm,
possibilities,
mm.
because we can't hire for yesterday for a very simple reason. Things have changed. Client
Yep,
customers needs have changed. our
yep.
our staff needs have changed. Technology is driving a lot of change, and now with the economic headwinds and all that, we are going to see many, many changes. So we
Mm,
need to develop for tomorrow. I mean, I can absolutely see that. So maybe they are fearful of moving forward, but you know what, I think we got to face the fear and move forward in slow, deliberate steps.
mm.
But I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's very simple. I mean, as you say, you develop, one day they're going to leave. You don't develop, they're
Yep.
going to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. So you put it very, very bluntly, you might as well develop, get some benefits out of it, and then they leave, rather than
Yeah.
have to deal
That's
with
true.
low
That's true.
performances. Yeah. Okay. Now this slide, we picked it because it has some interesting insights. So the work that we do primarily is located in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the Asia Pacific number,
27%.
right? 27%. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it answers the question: how concerned are you about being overlooked for development opportunities, either career advancement or whatever development
Okay.
opportunities
Okay.
are?
Okay.
So in Asia Pacific, 27 people, one in roughly four, are concerned about not having that opportunity to develop, right?
Okay.
They're either extremely concerned or very concerned. So that's like the top two.
Sure.
Now, if you take Indonesia and Malaysia, if you take Indonesia, it's 17%, Malaysia 16%. So very similar, right? That's
Okay.
way
Okay.
under the 27. It's about halfway point, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you could look at it from one extreme. One extreme is they're not concerned about development,
Or they're having the right conversations.
or they're having the right conversations, exactly.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And therefore, those right conversations are making them feel safe, making them feel assured that they will be given development opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, or the plans are there's transparency in knowing what's coming, what's in store for them, what's coming up, what's being laid out
Sure.
for them
Sure.
or lined up for them. Yeah, you could look at it that way.
Mm.
On the other hand, you have Singapore, and Singapore is very close. It's almost identical to the Asia Pacific number of 27%, and also slightly higher than the global number of 21%, right? So similarly, you can flip it. Are we having the right conversations in Singapore? Do we need to build skills around being able to have these conversations if you're not having them right now? What exactly is making people feel a bit insecure about their growth opportunities or development opportunities in the organizations that they are? That's interesting. And it's something, why we're sharing this, I think it's something for you to reflect in your organization. Are you in that space of how people are clear, people have transparency, having those conversations? Or are you in that space where people are not sure where I'm going in this organization because we're not having those conversations? We're not having those development conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ashok, anything that you
Yeah.
have?
Okay. So I'm just looking at when I was looking at these figures, and I'm just looking at Singapore. I said, hey, you know what? I guess when we meet up with the organizations, we need to drill down deeper into demographics of those organizations also. Because in Singapore, we have something very interesting. We have the workforce that represented from baby boomers right up to Gen Z, but a smaller portion. So we're not too sure which stages in life that they are at.
Right.
Are at, and what are the needs in that sense. So the developmental these numbers could be because across a board of different demographics, but what it also means then is to be able to have tailored design conversations at different stages for different people. So it could be that also, yeah. All right. Nice.
All right. Nice. Okay. And this is the last one. We thought that this would be great as a wrap up to the whole month and the 3 conversations that we had with our guests this month. This is from Josh Berson's group, and it's what's the difference between a business-centered leadership versus human-centered leadership, right? And if you look at this, when I looked at it, I said, yeah, obviously, I mean, common sense, duh, kind of like that, right? But really, is it common sense? Because I don't think it's common sense. Because, as Kafka's kids, common sense is not so common after all. We may know it, but our propensity is to kind of gear towards business-centered, leadership, right? How many of us are comfortable having development conversations? How many of us are they're comfortable having coaching conversations. How many of us really have our hands in the mold in those conversations, or have you passed it on to HR or somebody else to have those conversations, right?
Yeah.
And the 3 organizations that were represented in October or in our shows, I think these are organizations that have, in their various teams that they have shown that they've gotten the results they get is because they are human-centered in their leadership practices. That from Citibank to Boehringer Ingelheim, as well as Syntoma, right?
Okay.
The results that they're getting, at least with the people that we talked to in the locations that we are. So we had Marcy in Indonesia, we had Dr. Kam in Malaysia, and we had YAT SENG also in Malaysia.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. I totally get it. And I want to go a little deeper to understand the genesis of this. Because if you think about it, I'm looking at the last one there. It peoples as a means to an end. You see, when I researched this, I read this or researched this, when I went back about 100 over years back, Frederick Winslow Taylor wrote a book about principles of scientific management, right? Where he even actually went into factories those days, right? With a clipboard and a stopwatch. He just looked at how people were performing, and he was looking at people and how to drive their performance. And I'm summing it up very simply. He focused on 2 things: carrot and sticks. He said, if you want to make sure that they perform well, give them carrot and stick. That means give them punishment so they don't make mistakes. Do better, give them a bonus, right? So carrot and sticks was the way. And in fact, in his book, he even said he wished everybody were like animals, dumb like animals, easier to just treat them. So the way he saw people was pure numbers, digits, as a means to an end. That's it. That's it. So it was more of a head count approach, right? And all the scientific books, all the management books subsequently that came out after that, if you go to your MBAs and what have you got, a lot of focus, I suspect, is focusing on those matrices, those numbers. How to meet your ROIs and your strategies and what have you got, and that is why even when Peter Drucker said, right, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You hear it, you get sick of it, but when the 3 speakers actually demonstrated the importance of that, and that's why you put people as a purpose of business. And if you really think about it, why did we even start businesses? It is because to serve people, whether the people are the customer or the people are within the organization, and that is how you shift from treating people as a head count to a heart count.
Nice.
And it is even more important today. What I mean by today is from a COVID, right? It has wrecked a lot of assumptions that we believe in and that we are focusing on. People's values have shifted, clarity has come in that sense. Needs have changed. So how do we move forward, going for the future in that sense? And to me, it has to really be about focusing on the people. And just to let you know, Sham, hearing the past speakers in the month of September about talent retention, right? I wasn't there for acquisition. One thing I realized throughout all 7 speakers so far, right, that I've heard, is about the importance of relationships and how relationships will drive results. But they all focus on relationships. So it's about the people.
It is about the people.
It is
on that note, I think we brought it very nicely, Mr. Ashok Menon, to the close of today's session.
Oh, it's already 7.
Yes, it's 7. Yeah, I've got to get you to, pause there, right? And quite honestly, I mean, go listen or watch the shows that was in the month of October, and go further than that and go into the month of September to hear about the other conversations around relationships and why relationships are the thing that's going to define success, however you craft, however you define it. Relationships will be the core of it. Yeah.
Right.
So please go and have a listen. If you are the listening type that likes to run or jog and walk and listen to a podcast, we are on Spotify to do that. If you're the type that likes to see, feel, and see the emotions and feel the emotions and the thoughts that are going through our guests' heads, then we are on YouTube as well as on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can access us there. So we've come to the end of October, ladies and gentlemen. November is a brand new month. And for November, we are going to start looking at 2023. And we're going to look at what are some leadership trends, challenges that's in store for 2023. And we're going to be talking to slightly different people, not in HR and L&D, but people who look at strategy, look from different functions, from different industries, also from different spaces outside of business.
That's right.
All right, so we've got a few people lined up. We're going to start next week with whom, Ashok? It's you and me again.
It's you and me again. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, November, ladies and gentlemen, lock it in. It's all about trends affecting for 2023 going forward, business trends, people trends, and what are the actions we can take. So we are bringing in very high quality people to have those conversations about how we can prepare ourselves and our businesses for the future.
Yep. Okay, so look out for our posts and we'll tell you where you need to go to hear them. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening and we'll see you next week. Bye from Kembangan.
And from Pasir Ris.
All right, and toodaloo.
Bye-bye. Have